Hello YouTube, Southern Wolverine here, once again from Kerbal Space Center. This is episode 15 of Operation Laythe. And now for a change of pace from going to space, I think we're going to spend this episode over here in the spaceplane hangar. We haven't spent any time here yet, so we're going to fiddle around. We want to practice for our upcoming mission to Laythe, which will, as I stated at the start of this, involve a space plane. So we're just going to do a basic plane first. I think I'll take this opportunity for a basic overview of the aerodynamics and spaceplane design in Kerbal Space Program, simply by building sort of your basic jet vehicle. Of course, the base version of Kerbal Space Program does not have anything other than jets. Now, this is the basic jet engine, but screw that. Turbojet. Turbojet, I say. We want some power. Completely unnecessary for a vehicle this size, and it's only a demonstrator. But we're going to do it anyway, because why the hell not? Alright, so now, of course, for atmospheric flight, we only need basic wings. So we're going to throw a delta wing on there. With symmetry, of course. There we go. So that's your basic setup. Wings. Well, we want to keep a careful eye on our CG and lift on this one. Now, let's get all the aerodynamic elements on here before we start going crazy with that. We're going to put a tail fin on here. We're going to use this winglet with this sort of small control surface, and we only really need one of these on the center line to help us get roll control. So if we start to roll, if we start to pitch to one side, it's going to help keep us center. The control surface is just sort of an added benefit. Now, of course, we don't have any aerodynamic control at the moment, so we're going to have to do something about that by throwing on some of these giant control surfaces that ought to give us plenty of authority. Alright. Now, I've found that if we just slap landing gear wherever the hell they are, there they are. If we just slap the gear on the wing like this, we'll end up coming in very low and potentially whacking this engine. So I'm going to go ahead and put a bit of a standoff on there, and I think I'll just use one of these disconnects. I just have to make sure not to hit spacebar an extra time, thus ejecting my landing gear and consigning the pilot to a rather rough day. That would be sort of unfortunate for whoever it is we decide to send on this mission. Okay. And of course we need a third gear, at least a third gear, if not 4 or more, in order to stay stable. Of course, you have to make sure the center of gravity, center of mass, is in between your landing gear, or you will be in for a tough time, as your vehicle will, of course, flip over on the launch pad or on the runway before it even goes anywhere. Actually, I don't think those standoffs are even tall enough, so I'm going to go for something a little bit crazier. Like one of these hard points. We're going to go ahead and bring it closer to the fuselage too, I think. Because what I want to do is I want to keep it... I just want to keep these spread out enough so that we don't, flip over when we try to land, if we land a little bit off center or something. So whatever, there we go. That's the basics. Now this isn't great. I think I will need to take the wing and move it forward, because what you want is you want to keep the center of lift and the center of mass fairly close together, and you want the center of mass in front of your center of lift. What that will do for you is, if you start to lose lift, if you've gone too steep or something like that, then you'll lose lift here, and you'll start to actually nose down, as your weight will tend to pull you down, thus restoring your natural airstream and giving you a more stable vehicle. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and, for the sake of demonstration, take that off of there. We won't need it. We're not going to space anyway, so we won't need the SAS. And one thing I found in Kerbal Space Program that's really helpful, even though you don't really need it, on, you know, most conventional terrestrial aircraft is canards on the front. Do give you a lot more lift authority. I've tried all kinds of variations on putting, you know, a more realistic like T-tail kind of arrangement, something like this. Well, I can't put them on that, you know, but if I had, nope, won't work on that either. I really should have planned this a little bit better. There we go. So I say we had something like this, and then we took, get lost you. We took something like this. This is something that most people would recognize as a sort of standard arrangement, and I found that that's simply not enough to get these vehicles off the launch pad or the runway, simply because these end up being heavy and it's hard to get the center of mass close enough to the gear, reducing your angle to get you enough lift to take off. I'll leave those on there just because it'll be funny. Even though I don't like doing it, I'm going to go ahead and put canards on the front. And this will give us better lift, because it'll let us lift up the front as well as push down essentially on the back and try to, you know, rotate up and get us the angle to take off. Now, you don't see any curve to these wings. They, of course, don't have an airfoil shape. So really, what we ought to do is we're going to take them, we're going to hold shift to get the fine angle adjustments, and eventually I'll find the right one and pitch it up a little bit. That'll help us get us lift even when we're at 0 angle of attack, which would be meaning the fuselage is dead level. The other thing I'm going to do in order to maintain roll stability and try to keep this vehicle bringing itself back to center is I'm going to flip these wings just a couple notches up like that. And I exaggerate a little bit. Really, it's only like 1 notch that you need. So, something like that. So see, they're both lifted in the front and they are lifted at the tip. And what that will do, if you start to roll one way, this wing will generate, if you roll this way, your tail goes to your right. This wing will essentially generate more lift, this one left, which will generate more force to rotate you back to center, thus giving you improved stability. That's the idea. Now we gotta stick our landing gear back on. You see they're at this angle now because the wing is at an angle. So we're just going to bump them a tick back in so they are vertical again. Okay, and we're just gonna go with that. Now, of course, these aircraft modules or these aircraft command pods have SAS, just like everything else does. And many of the jet engines also have vectored thrust, just like the rockets do. However, what I'm going to do for the sake of aerodynamic demonstration is I'm going to go ahead and toggle the torque off, and I'm going to go ahead and, at least for now, lock the gimbal on that engine. Alright, I'm going to light the thruster. Oh, ha ha ha. Let's go back to the spaceplane hangar. Before something stupid happens, what did I forget? Jet engines, of course, need intake air. They need the oxygen in order to power the combustion process. So this vehicle would work a lot better if it had some air intakes. Okay, that being out of the way, let's try this again. Rookie move there, rookie move. Okay, we're going to toggle the torque, we're going to turn the fine controls on, we're going to lock the gimbal, and we're going to let Jeb go to town. We're going to activate the engine, throttle up. Now she's working. Now this is very lightweight, it should pick up speed very quickly. You'll notice I've turned the fine controls on, it makes these planes a lot less twitchy. Look how fast that takes off. And keep in mind, I'm only under aerodynamic control, and this thing is totally solid. I'm not even touching the keyboard at this point, except to raise the landing gear. And you see this thing is just rock steady. Only aerodynamic control. Which actually also means that I'm not using any electric power, I don't think. Although the jet engines do generate electric power. Alright, so let me just turn the SAS off and go full manual See, now it is going to tend to pitch down for the moment. My center of mass will shift aft as I fly, as I burn fuel. See, even with the flight controls on, this is a little bit twitchy because this is small and it has a lot of flight control surface for this size of a vehicle. So I'm going to go ahead and leave the SAS on while I fly this around. It's going to make it a lot easier to control and avoid oversteering. So, see, it's really easy with a lot of planes you're going to make yourself in this to oversteer and get into a situation where your vehicle's going to flip and do other sort of unfortunate things. That's an after effect of the sort of pseudo aerodynamics that happen in Kerbal Space Program. The aerodynamics aren't great, so you're not going to be able to get into a plane and fly this like it's your, Microsoft Flight Simulator or something like that. That's really not what it's for. And it's gotten better, I'll give them that. It has gotten a lot better than in previous versions. Before, you would tend to overcorrect when you're on SAS with the flight controls, and they would cause things to go a little bit crazy on you, even to the point where your structural connections would actually start to break and throw bits of your plane in all directions. Obviously not a good thing. So steadily improving, and this is someplace where the new SAS configuration where it stays on and still lets you maneuver. It's nice for spacecraft. It is extremely helpful for aircraft. So as my little monologue has gone on here, we've of course approached the other airfield out on this island, so I'm going to go ahead and throttle down and see if I can land there, and then we will recover Jebediah and try to make a space plane real quick and see if we can't get it into orbit. Now fortunately I can do it the easy way, since I did, I believe in the last episode, unlock the wonderful new Rapier engine, which is the spaceplane engine for people who are lazy and don't want to put multiple engines on their vehicle. Very useful piece of equipment. Okay, I'm coming a little fast, so I'm going to just cut the throttle entirely. Whoa. Oh, I might have come in too high. Well, let's see. Whoop, brakes. Oh, hang on. Oh well. You get the idea. I came in way too high and had to come down too hard and smash his face. Anyway, back to the spaceplane hangar. So we're just going to start again and build a spaceplane. Alright, so there's our cockpit. Now I'm going to show you the build on this too, I think. If it gets too long, I'll cut some of this out. But the idea for me for a spaceplane is to use this cockpit, even though it doesn't have an interior, which sort of annoys me, is because then I can stick a clampotron on the front and use it to connect to other spacecraft, to a space station. You can use this as a little shuttle to transfer crew up and down to a space station if you had one, which I don't at the moment. But if I did, and in order to get a vehicle to another planet, I'm not going to of course fly it there all by itself, so I'm going to want that to attach it to a transfer vehicle, sort of like the one that I sent to Duna, or possibly a larger version of that. In any case, I'm going to put an RCS tank on it, because when it's in orbit, I'm going to want to be able to maneuver, put rocket fuel, of course, and even though that has fuel for the jet, we're going to put additional jet fuels just on the side. And of course, this is just the liquid fuel, same thing that's in the rocket liquid fuel portion, except it contains no oxidizer, of course. And I found that those structural connections tend to be weak, so I'm just going to go ahead and strap those bad boys together. And we want to use in air breathing mode for as long as possible, so that means lots of intakes. So we're going to start for now with a pair of these ram air intakes, which are good high altitude intakes. Alright, for propulsion, well, hang on, let me tie this in to the center with fuel tanks, because I plan to take this up with just a single Rapier engine. Let's see if that's enough. to get us into orbit. So actually I'm going to take these and see if I can back them up a little bit. Like so. And then what I can do is I can go ahead and put... Oh, I lost my... Come on, give me the symmetry back, damn you, sir. There we go. So now I can go ahead and put the landing gear right on here and get them as far towards the back as possible. So that when I lift off, I don't smack the engine into the ground, which is the most unfortunate way to lose a spacecraft. Let's see, we're not going to bother with science for the moment. We can always tack that on later. I do want to throw a couple of these on here, because one of the important drawbacks of the Rapier engine is it does not, repeat, does not generate electrical power. Fairly significant drawback there. It's one of the reasons that this engine isn't, you know, totally unfair and broken and all that kind of fun stuff. Well, let's not bother with the batteries. We're not really going to do much in space just yet. Of course, we're going to need some wings here. So let me go ahead and do that. It's just, I'd like to use the big Delta wings, but it's a little hard to mount on this vehicle. So what I'll do is I'll put these regular sort of swept wings on there, and then I will take this, I call it the structural wing, but this kind of, you know, steeper V shape, and put it there for some additional lift. So let's see, actually that looks pretty darn good for just throwing it on there. So of course, as I was discussing before, we're going to tip those up a little bit for stability, and we are going to pitch them up to generate extra lift. And just because it will look right, I'm going to try here, let's turn that off so we can align this more cleanly. I'm going to go ahead and try to get these to line up with those, just so that it looks cool. There we go. Okay, now we still need control surfaces, which are in here somewhere. There we go. Stick them on towards the outside, because we'll get more roll authority there. Same force generated further from the center of mass is going to give us more roll. And just throw a couple of these garden variety winglets on here, like so. And we will put our small flight control surfaces up front, again as sort of baby canards, just to give us the you know, the pitch authority that we need to get this off the ground. And landing gear, give me that back, damn you. Landing gear, landing gear. We do want to bring Jebediah home safely. Symmetry. Darn you. Gotta stop tweaking and just go with it. Okay. Now, of course, I put this RCS tank on here, so for controlling in space, we do want to go ahead and throw some RCS thrusters around this. And we're going to sort of create triple symmetry instead of quad symmetry. Or we're going to simulate the three-way symmetry anyway. Alright, you can go away, we are done with you. And that's placed right about there, so we'll go like that. Not ideal maybe, but it should get the job done. And for high altitude flight, we need more air into the engines, because of course the atmosphere is thinner. So we are going to just tack extra intakes onto this bad boy. Like so. And you know what, let's throw another pair on the underside of the wing here, like that. There we go, so we should have plenty of air intakes. I'm trying to think if I missed anything. I don't think so. Oop. Space plane Mark 1. Question mark. Will we make it into a space plane or not? We'll find out. Let's have a go at it, shall we? Of course, we're letting Mr. Jebediah Kerman once again take the reins. intrepid pioneer of the 3 original guys. So I think this should do pretty well. Whether it'll actually totally make it into orbit or not, I'm not sure. The rapier, we have it right now in automatic switching, which means is when it runs out of intake air due to altitude, it will automatically switch to closed cycle and start using up oxidizer as well as liquid fuel. And it is far more efficient in air breathing mode because, well, it doesn't need to use all that extra weight of oxidizer. So it's just a far more efficient process. So we want to stay with that as long as we can. So its thrust isn't as much as I might like, but it's enough to get us going. We still got into the air well before the tower. So far so good. So we're going to go ahead and pitch this bad boy up. We want to get out of the thick part of the atmosphere here, and get up into here for as long as we can, build up as much speed as we can, and then as soon as we end up losing the intake air we need and going closed cycle, then we're going to pitch up again and head for space. So again, with this control arrangement, with the canards, with these big control surfaces, and fairly light, although these fuel tanks are far heavier than these. So this, even though it's not much bigger than that previous plane we built, is significantly heavier. But it's still fairly light, so these large control surfaces are going to have no trouble keeping this online. And of course, this time I've left this engine doesn't generate power, but it does have gimbaling, and I've left the capsule torque on. And as you see, it's draining my power because my stupid solar panels are on the top of the vehicle where the sun can't see them at the moment. That's okay. When we level out a little bit more, we'll have plenty of sunlight, and we should be able to get all the power we need. Whew. So here we go. Ooh, actually, I'm going to pitch down just a little bit. I'm actually losing speed there. Maybe I should have gone with 2 engines and then feed fuel from here to those instead of 1 on the center. Oh well, too late now, we're going with it. 1 engine does mean less weight, so that's nice. You do see we're barely sipping the fuel. So this is being very efficient right now, and actually we can look at specific impulse, 2500. That's quite good. I mean, most of the rockets in vacuum are only, you know, on the order of 300 or something like that. Even the atomic motor, sort of the champion efficient of the liquid burning engines, is 800. Not even close. Not even close to these jets. And the jets, I think, are 2,000 or 3,000. But of course, they don't have switching like this Rapier engine does. Actually put this in fast forward as long as this doesn't start to lose control. See, the wings actually okay, let's not do too much fast forward. See, the physics cause things to wobble and actually look like they're going to break when you try the time acceleration in atmosphere like that. But getting up very nicely. Of course, these launches are far slower than rocket launches. That's just sort of the way they are. They're more efficient, but slower. Just sort of the nature of the beast. Alright, so now we're out of the thick atmosphere and still got plenty of air intake. I can't remember what the flame out of this engine is. Actually, it's not even really flame out, but whoa, 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 I don't want to thrust limit it. Don't do that. Oh, it's not telling me, but there is a flame out threshold. I want to say it's like 0.02 or something like that. Beyond which point you don't have enough air to breathe, and then it's got to, in this case, it'll go to closed cycle. In the case of the jet engines, they will simply stop functioning. You see, we're actually sort of leveled off here a little bit, and I kind of want to climb a bit more. Yeah, perhaps 2 engines next time. maybe I'll experiment some off camera. You do see we're getting up to some decent speed now, though. And it's because we're in that sort of zone where we still have plenty of thrust, although our efficiency's come down quite a bit. It's still quite good, but it has come down. But we have less resistance, so we're still actually accelerating quite quickly. Our thrust is actually going up, but our efficiency is going down. Well, you know, sort of the trade-off. Still far more efficient than rockets would be. And of course, this is all reusable, assuming we manage to land it in one piece. So when it gets to the point where you do have an actual budget in Kerbal Space Program, this is the sort of thing that would be very efficient to send up into orbit for your sort of utility runs and things like that, because you don't need to keep replacing parts. And of course it uses far less fuel than a rocket would for the same kind of size. Something like this, of course, is not going to be able to do your cargo delivery missions, though, as it simply does not have the size and thrust. Perhaps make just a larger version of this and do that. I have not attempted such a thing yet, but theoretically it's possible. You could make something like a space shuttle that takes off horizontally and carries enough fuel to refuel a space station or a ship in orbit or something like that. It's just, I have not tried it yet. You need an awfully large wing on it to pull it off, and quite a few of these engines, because unlike the rocket engines where you have the main sails on the skippers, the larger diameter engines, you don't have that for these Rapiers and for jet engines, so you just have to stack a bunch of them on. Alright, so now we're going to level off and try to build up as much speed as we can. Go, 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 go. See, now the speed's really getting up there. We're getting damn close to orbital velocity. But I want to kind of level off here and stop climbing because the intake air has also gone down. So if I lose much more, I'm going to actually lose this air breathing cycle. Oh, there it is. It just switched to rocket. Okay, so we're going to just go for it. We're going to pitch up. Oh, we're actually getting an overheat warning. Throttle down just a bit. You see now, we're going quite quickly, and we're already up, you know, at 36,000 meters. So we've got quite a head start to orbit. Although, of course, now we're sucking down the fuel far more rapidly. And, of course, we're eating into the oxidizer now, too. You see, this is actually going to make it into orbit on our first try. No problem, even. Should have plenty of fuel left. So let's just go ahead and actually get it into orbit. We'll just do one circle and come back. See if we can't land it at Kerbal Space Center. And call that an episode. So this has been, well, it will be, barring some horrible catastrophe in the next few seconds, a successful test of a space plane. Something very like this is what we'll probably end up sending out to Laythe. Of course, we'll still have to do some things to it. We'll have to add some science, perhaps an RCS module, more solar panels. I think some on the bottom side, so that this can work in any attitude. But still, good start. Good start. So let's go ahead and make an orbit out of this. Now, one thing about this design is now that it's a rocket, it's a little bit top heavy actually, thanks to more things being out on this side than on the bottom. It's not entirely symmetrical. Works great for a plane, not the best of things for a rocket. So in any case, I'm going to go ahead and do a burn over here and start to bring this guy down on top of Kerbal Space Center. And we'll just fly it back home. Actually, we're going to aim out in front of Kerbal Space Center. something like that, and bring Jebediah home. This will be the fastest flight to, you know, nowhere, because we're just coming back to where we left from. So let's get our aim back out in front of the Kerbal Space Center. See, the engines, whoa, overdid it a little bit. The engines do have a different sound even when they're on closed cycle, and they have like a purple flame instead of that, you know, sort of red flame that they normally have. So let's just bring this around, get it back into the atmosphere. And I have come into the atmosphere way too early. And upside down and backwards. Whew. So maybe we're not going to end up coming all the way back to Kerbal Space Center. Maybe I'll just land in these plains or on this peninsula or something. I could probably fly all the way back there. I don't really feel like doing that because it's going to take a really long time. And honestly, this episode's already been long enough. Although if we do end up trying to land in the dark, that would be pretty unfortunate. Fortunately, we're coming out into the sun here as we get over these mountains. We should be able to turn and, you know, head into this area or something like that. Here we go, back into the sun. Oh, gotta be careful maneuvering at 4 times speed like that. Just leave it there until we start to get into the atmosphere. We should get a nice re-entry effect. Be the first plane that's on fire, and it's not a bad thing. Ooh. Yeah, right now I think we're setting some aircraft speed records. Ooh, and Jeb's liking it. Even though he has, if we go to his view, absolutely... Whoa! Oh! Oh. Sorry, Jeb. I hit the wrong button. Oh well. We'll just head back to the spaceplane hangar. So, 2 sort of stupid moments for me. Slammed down on the runway too hard and hit EVA instead of IVA. Well, in any case, we know this actually does work as a spaceplane. So we can go ahead and take the question mark out of there. And hit save. Unfortunately, Jebediah does not have a parachute, so once he's on EVA in the atmosphere, on fire, there's not much we can do for him. In any case, thank you for watching this spaceplane testing episode of Kerbal Space Program. I am Southern Wolverine, signing off from the spaceplane hangar.